What if the United States attacks Iran not through warnings, not through proxies, but with direct military force? It's a question quietly circulating in Washington, loudly debated online, and watched closely by every major capital on the planet. Because this wouldn't be another limited strike or symbolic show of power. A U.S. attack on Iran would immediately shift the global order, militarily, economically, and politically, in ways the American public may not be fully prepared for. Iran is not Iraq. It is not Libya. It is not Afghanistan. Iran is deeply integrated into regional power networks, energy supply routes, and global alliances that extend far beyond the Middle East. Any direct U.S. military action would trigger consequences that unfold within hours, not months. The first and most immediate problem for the United States would be regional escalation. Iran does not fight wars alone. It operates through a web of allies and aligned forces across the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon, powerful militias in Iraq and Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, all of these groups have publicly stated they would respond if Iran is attacked. That means U.S. bases across Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and even the UAE would instantly become targets. The conflict would not stay confined to Iran's borders. It would explode outward. Israel would be pulled in almost immediately. Hezbollah possesses tens of thousands of rockets aimed at Israeli territory. A northern front opening up would force Israel into a full-scale conflict while the U.S. is already engaged elsewhere. That alone dramatically increases the scale and cost of the war. Then comes the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points in the global economy. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that narrow stretch of water. Iran has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to disrupt shipping there using mines, drones, fast attack boats, and missiles. Even a partial closure would send oil prices soaring within days. Insurance rates on shipping would spike. Energy markets would panic. And the effects would hit American consumers almost immediately at the gas pump. Higher oil prices don't just mean expensive fuel. They ripple through the entire U.S. economy. Transportation costs rise. Food prices increase. Manufacturing becomes more expensive. Inflation, which Washington has struggled to control, would surge again. The Federal Reserve would face pressure to keep interest rates high, slowing growth further. A war thousands of miles away would directly impact the cost of living inside the United States. Financing such a conflict would be another massive burden. The U.S. is already carrying historic levels of debt. A prolonged war with Iran would cost tens of billions of dollars per month. Precision missiles, air defense systems, naval deployments, and troop logistics are not cheap. Unlike short operations, this would likely be an extended campaign. Markets hate uncertainty, and Wall Street would react accordingly. Defense stocks might rise, but broader market confidence could drop sharply. Now consider the global response. Iran would not be isolated. Russia has strengthened ties with Tehran, especially through energy cooperation and military coordination. While Russia may not enter the war directly, it could provide intelligence, weapons, and diplomatic cover. China, heavily dependent on Middle Eastern oil and closely linked to Iran through trade agreements, would strongly oppose U.S. action. Beijing might not fight, but it could use economic leverage, accelerate de-dollarization efforts, and rally global opposition against Washington. European allies would be deeply divided. Some NATO countries might offer political support, but public opinion in Europe is increasingly hostile to Middle East wars. Massive protests, parliamentary resistance, and diplomatic fractures would follow. The idea of a unified Western front would quickly weaken. Meanwhile, countries like Pakistan, Turkey, and much of the global South would call for restraint rather than alignment. Many already see U.S. military interventions as destabilizing rather than protective. A strike on Iran could further isolate Washington diplomatically, especially at the United Nations. Cyber warfare would open another front. Iran has invested heavily in cyber capabilities. U.S. infrastructure, banks, energy grids, transportation systems could face sustained cyber attacks. Even temporary disruptions would shake public confidence and strain emergency systems. This wouldn't look like traditional warfare. It would feel like chaos inside everyday life. Inside the United States, political pressure would intensify. War fatigue is real. Public trust in foreign interventions is low after decades of conflict. Rising prices, market instability, and the possibility of American casualties would quickly become central election issues. Congressional debates over funding and authorization would grow heated. Social divisions would deepen. And then there's the long-term damage. Even if the U.S. achieves military objectives, the strategic cost could outweigh the victory. Iran would not collapse easily. It has a large population, rugged terrain, and decades of experience surviving sanctions and pressure. A destabilized Iran could mean years of regional instability, refugee crises, and permanent insecurity around global energy routes. So when analysts ask, what if the U.S. attacks Iran? The real question isn't whether America can strike. It's whether the United States is prepared for everything that follows. Military power does not equal strategic control. And in today's interconnected world, one decision can fracture economies, alliances, and global stability faster than missiles ever could. This is why the scenario remains one of the most dangerous hypotheticals in modern geopolitics. Because once it starts, there is no clean exit, only consequences.